Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lead Change Empowerment Podcast, where we empower you in your now and lead the change you want to see in yourself and others. Without further ado, here to serve you, your host, Mr. Steve Robinson.
Welcome, Lead Changing Community. I am Steve Robinson, and I am grateful for you. Today, I will talk about promoting positive self-esteem in our youth. This is a great time because it's back to school time. A lot of you, if you haven't already started, you're getting ready to head back to school. And I want to talk about getting self-esteem, bringing up self-esteem and empowering our youth with self-esteem. That is the beginning of starting off to a great year, I believe, with whatever your children may be going through or any youth that you know or may be involved with. Our youth need our support. And before we dive into it, let's agree on the definition of self-esteem. According to a Google search, is defined as confidence in one's self, worth, abilities, and self-respect. And I want to talk about low self-esteem first and some of the effects that you have, because I know growing up myself, I had low self-esteem when I was coming up, for the most part, around my early childhood, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. Of course, always being the biggest kid out of the group, I was kind of self-conscious about my weight. Didn't talk too much, didn't look you in the eye when I spoke. And to see me now and to look back then, my mother would tell you, she had to tell me to open my mouth and talk to people. Now, around my friends that I knew, that I was cool with, that wasn't a problem. But whenever it came to anything else, it was always a self-consciousness part of me of not wanting to be involved. And it was just low self-esteem. And she always worked to build that with me. And I'd read an article on simplypsychology.org that talks about low self-esteem and low self-esteem in children. And it talks about being noted as that on average, self-esteem during childhood is found to be relatively high. However, there are individual differences, and some children are unfortunate to experience feelings of low self-esteem. And, low self-esteem in children tends to be related to physical punishment and withholding of love and affections by parents. Now, that's according to Carl Rogers. So he would describe this as conditional positive regard. And that's explained as where individuals only receive positive attention from significant others, such as parents, when they act a certain way. So you know how it can be sometime when if the child does what they're supposed to do, or you want them to do, you'll act a certain way, and then maybe if they don't, you don't do that. So this reinforces the child that they are only a person of value when they act a certain way. Say, for instance, like having good grades, maybe getting an A on the test, or if you make that shot, or if you score that touchdown, or if you play that instrument well, or whatever it may be. The list goes on. But now what I want to tell you is children with low self-esteem rely on coping strategies that are counterproductive, such as bullying, quitting, cheating, and avoiding. And the list goes on. And although all children will display some of these behaviors at times, low self-esteem is strongly indicated when these behaviors are, in its regularity. So low self-esteem also in teenagers. Now, this is where it gets a little, more serious as well. Self-esteem continues to decline during adolescence, particularly for girls. Researchers have explained that this decline to body image and other problems associated with puberty. Now, you got to look at this day and age where everything is done through social media. Everything happens so fast, which means if an unwanted picture of you get out, it's spread across Facebook, Instagram, all the social media contacts, texting that everyone uses, and there's no way to recover from it. It gets to the point to where it's like, oh man, this picture was not a good picture, or someone happened to get the picture, or someone took the picture, and it goes to a level 10 real fast. Now, girls with low self-esteem appear to be more vulnerable to perceptions of the ideal body image perpetuated through Western media, methods such as like airbrushing models or magazine covers, and basically what they see on TV, and that's what they kind of go forward to. And the importance of self-esteem, to switch it over into self-esteem, the importance of it, children need love and appreciation. We got to love and appreciate our youth and showing them that. We got to give words and actions. It's very important that words followed by action have the biggest impact on our young people's confidence. I know, for example, with my son, I never forget the day he was playing baseball for the first time, and he had a coach that was yelling. Well, the coach was yelling, and he was like, and after practice, he was like, I don't understand why that coach think if he do all the yelling, then it's gonna get somebody to do something. And I was like, wow, and it made me reflect on myself, because a lot of times when I'm trying to get him to do something or get something completed or do it, it's like you might be yelling and yelling. And it made me realize that if you just change the way that you talk or change the way that I approach him, then it can get done, matter of fact, not as much as even faster, but more efficiently being completed. And parents or guardians, communication is very essential. It is the most essential form of connecting with someone else. I mean, I think it's the top. It's just like the top. Communication works whether, I don't care if you're talking to youth, if you're talking to adults. Communication is so key. And as the guardian or the parent, you have to be able to communicate to the young people, to our youth, and let alone our youth, but not so much as our youth as well, but everybody. You know, we got to be able to communicate with everybody. So the parent or guardian will play a key role in helping develop a child's self-esteem. And like I said, the reason I wanted to talk about this on this second show, this is episode 0001. Oh, no, 001. The first one was 000, so this one's going to be 001. And let me tell you something that's amazing about this, and not to get off topic. Since I have a podcast, I thought everything had to be perfect with getting everything right the first time, and I really don't have to. That's amazing, right? Okay. All right, so let's keep going and talking about this. So parents and guardians play the key role in helping develop a child's self-esteem. That's the first line. That's the first line before they go out into the world, before they go out into school, before they go out to their friends. The person who is over them, that parent or guardian, is going to be the key role to how this plays. Now, what good self-esteem will do? Good self-esteem helps children to act independently. It allows them to form their own opinion. It helps them with taking accountability for what they do. It takes accountability for their own actions. They're acting independently, that they're not following the crowd all the time, or they're not doing what their friends may be doing when they have good self-esteem. Another good thing about having good self-esteem is it helps them with managing conflicts. Now, you got to understand, this is a day and age in schools where kids are being bullied on a regular. Kids are having middle school, junior high, high school. They're taking drugs. There's alcohol. There's a lot of things. There's sex. So you got bullying, you got sex, you have drugs and alcohol, all of this, and I'm talking about 6th, 7th, 8th grade. We haven't even jumped into what's going on a high school level. So if this is going on the 6th and 7th grade level, even down to 4th and 5th grade level as well, we have to build that self-esteem for them to be able to manage those conflicts appropriately. You know, not just when they get upset and don't know how to react to something that's going on, or if they get into an altercation or a verbal altercation with someone, how to manage that correctly. And when you have positive self-esteem, that helps you and that allows you to be able to do that. And another thing that having good self-esteem will do, and I know as mine began to grow, it allows you to take on new challenges. You're able to try things, maybe go out for a team, or maybe even as far as meeting a new person, or being able to ask for help when you need help from a teacher, whether it need to be getting help with some homework, or being able to talk to your parent, or being able to talk to you as the parent or guardian. That helps manage, that helps take on new challenges. And the key thing about having good self-esteem, or another good point, is it allows you to express your emotions appropriately instead of just firing off when something goes wrong, or walking away, or stomping off, or pouting, or just acting out when things don't go your way, or even when things do go your way, you're able to manage your emotions. You can express it appropriately. There is appropriate way, and I tell them it's okay to be upset. It's okay to disagree with something that's said, but there's an appropriate way to express that. So now let's talk about what you can do now. What are some of the things that you can do right now? Right now, you can use positive statements. Like it's great to say, I tell my son, you did a great job. That was good. Sometimes I'll call him back downstairs and thinking that he didn't do something right, but it's just to say, hey, that was a good job. Tell him like, hey, I noticed how you did this, or I like how you did that. And then the nonverbal, there's nonverbal ways that you can also express building with self-esteem is, giving them a pat on the back, a head nod. The thing about youth is they want structure. They want to be, and not so much as discipline, they want to be guided. They want our help. Giving a head nod of approval, there's nothing greater than to have your parent or your guardian or your coach or your teacher to give you that head nod from a long distance. Maybe they can't see you right then or touch you right then and say, hey, good to pat you on the back, but they can give you that head nod or give you that wink just to say, hey, that was a great job you did. I'm proud of you. And be generous with your praise. Look for the situations to see the good in what children do and what the youth do. Look for those situations, because I'm going to tell you this. We always seem to find what is wrong when they don't do right. There's not enough times where you can say that you can sit back and say you were waiting. You knew that this was basically going to make that decision. And the first time, and I knew you were going to do that, and I know you were going to do this. And then you look for the situations that are wrong. And I'm going to give you a prime example of talking about giving attention to things that's wrong. So say the report card comes home, right? And on the report card, and this is just going for mine, if I can remember it correctly, you have 2 B's, a C, and maybe a D or something like that, right? So you don't talk about the 2 A's, the B's, the C. Hey, we can get that. That's what you'll say is, that's good. That was a good job. But hey, we need to work on this D. Hey, we need to work on this C. Let's put some more time in the C. So basically, you've just said, the hell with everything else you just did. I'm focusing on this D. Now, what does that do to the person? What does that do to the youth, or what does that do to the child on the other end of receiving that? I mean, it's like, I did this work. We're not even paying attention to the A's or the B's that I got. The only thing that we're going to focus on is the D. And it's like, yeah, you did good, but when we can turn it around and say, hey, that's a wonderful job. Yeah, we'll work on that part, but this is great. Let's celebrate what you did right. Let's encourage the right things that you did. We always try to, yes, it's not that you're overlooking it, but you're not giving it all that much attention. And now, when they see the attention or the praise that they get from the things that they did right, then they'll be working to bring those other things up. They'll be working to get the other things right as well. And don't always try to solve problems for them. I try my best to allow my son to make mistakes and then help him with solving the problem to get it done. You didn't do this the way you were supposed to this time, but hey, here's a consequence that's going to happen, that has to happen. But let's see what you can do for the next time. Let you solve this, or what you should have done. What do you think you should have done? What are some of the things, instead of, why didn't you do this? I think whenever a person say, I'm like that now. If my wife asks me, why did I do, it's like, oh, when you do, the word why puts you in defense mode. Why did you do that? Why didn't you call me back? Why didn't you go here? Why didn't you pick this up? Why didn't you take this there? Why? When you are hit with why just automatically puts you into the defense mode. And I believe that if you change that around, and it helps them to understand, hey, what could we have done to do better? What could we have done to make this different? What do you think we should have done? And another thing about using like positive statements and positive reinforcement is use constructive criticism. Don't use blame and ridicule. We find, to me, a lot of parents, because I work a lot in the school system. I used to be a foster parent myself. I worked in foster care as a foster care coordinator. And a lot of times working with parents and working in schools and going to meet with parents and going to talk in different schools, the one thing that I find out is that a lot of times parents use like the blame and ridicule. Like, if you made a mistake, see, I told you that was going to happen. See, I knew that you was going to do that. I know, and it's always like the blaming and ridicule because you did this, and this is why this, and it's always those, and it's just tearing them down piece by piece. We're slowly tearing them down. We don't even understand it. We're slowly tearing them down when we sit to just say, you're just blaming everything and ridiculing for every single thing. A lot of times, a person could have done something, a child could have done something, and they done it last week, and you're still talking about it. See, I told you, remember when you did this, or remember when you did that, you're still bringing it up. You're still bringing it up. You're still talking about it. And there's a way to be able to talk about things that they've done wrong and let it be. Begin to apologize. I think that's one of the biggest things that parents don't do. We don't apologize to our children. We don't say that we're wrong. We always got to be right. If we make a mistake and we're wrong or we do something wrong, we need to apologize and do it sincerely. Stop doing the apology, but then have a rebuttal behind it, a but or an and or what is it, the interjections. Yeah, I'm sorry, but if you wouldn't have, okay, that killed the I'm sorry. I apologize, but that kills the whole purpose of even saying it. Apologize sincerely and let children know that you have been wrong as well, that you have made the wrong decisions sometimes, and that you have made mistakes, and that helps build them up. But when you apologize to somebody, apologize and be sincere about it. The biggest thing you can do is say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I was wrong for that." And I'm telling you these things that I have done myself and had to go back and check myself on, just the way that I have maybe told my son to get the room clean, or you didn't do this, or you're supposed to do that. And then come back later and say, "Hey, I apologize. The way that I said it, the tone that I used was not right, and I apologize. Would you forget?" And that opens up a whole new, just an amazing room for communication and dialogue. Because once he sees that, okay, dad can be wrong, or he's wrong, even though half the time they probably see that you've done some stuff wrong or went back over what you said, that allows them to be able to have that dialogue to say, "Hey, I didn't do this right," or I was thinking about this and I made this decision. That starts that communication to help you for those times when something goes wrong and a child has been presented with drugs at school or been asked to take a drink of this. I remember my son is in fifth grade or sixth grade. His first year of sixth grade. Sixth grade. First year hitting middle school. And on the bus, the eighth graders had cough syrup. They call it lean or syrup or whatever. They're drinking, prescription drugs on the bus, and they're passing it around. So if I wouldn't, not only did it make him feel good to be able to say that, because he needed to talk to somebody about this. Because he did say no, and that's going to make you appear to be, on the outside, and that you're not in with the rest of them. And you have to be able to, and that's one of the last things that a child wants to do, is feel like you're not a part of the group sometimes, because that starts the isolation. That starts the different problems that they will face and that they will see, in school and on the bus and things like that. So it's very important to be able to communicate. And some of the self-esteem breakdowns, I'm going to give you a couple of self-esteem breakdowns, is focusing on your child's weakness. Don't focus on the weakness. Stop focusing on your child's weakness. Giving your child everything without earning it. Teach your children how to earn what it is that they want. Work with them to teach them that. Being afraid to set limits. Listen, children want and need structure. Don't be afraid to set limits. If you say no, then that means no. Setting those limits and setting that boundaries for children is very important. And then I'm going to tell you another thing. That makes it to where later on, you're not having to go back over again when they keep asking you and asking you and asking you. Well, if that happens, and it's like a friend of mine told me one day, he said, "Steve, I'm not trying to raise you." This was when my son was real young. He said, "I'm not trying to tell you how to raise your son." He said, "But since we've been talking, he came and asked you about 4 or 5 times, could he do something? And, you finally said, yeah. So apparently he's done this before, and you've allowed it to go on to the point to where you said, yeah. And instead of saying no one time and letting that be it. And that's part of, setting the boundaries, setting the structures, and making it stick. And when you're doing that, another breakdown for your self-esteem breakdowns are showing frustration and making this discipline. You start to show your frustration. Like I was saying in the example just a second ago about when he kept asking me, when you get frustrated and then try to discipline. Well, since you kept asking me, then you can't do this, this, and this. That's showing your frustration. So now you begin to get sucked into a power struggle. A lot of times I see it all the time. Parents get sucked into a power struggle with their kids. It's the going back and forth. If they pouting for this, and it's like, well, if I just, when I was growing up, I just bust that butt, then, we can get that out the way. But this is a different area and time to where it can affect you in different ways as far as getting sucked into the power struggle of what they say and then what you say, or what they say and what you say, and when it shouldn't be a going back and forth. You said it, and that's it. Using lectures all the time and repeated threats. I had this real bad of continuing to use the lecture all the time. So I told you to do this, and because you didn't do that, you didn't fix up the room. You were supposed to do that. If you don't do this, you're not going to be able to go outside, or you're not going to be able to play the game. You're not going to be able to get on your phone. You're not going to be, and it's repeated. If you don't clean up this, or if you don't set that. Those are using the lectures all the time and repeated threats versus this was not done, this would happen. So remove the phone. There's no need to go back and forth about, because you say, well, you didn't clean up the room, or they might say, well, you didn't say what time I had to clean up the room, or when it needed to be done. Or say, well, you're supposed to wash the dishes. Well, I did set the dishes in. I put the dishes in the dishwasher. Those are the going back and forth versus in the repeated threats of what you're going to do and what you're going to do and what they're not going to do. Set it and forget it. Put it in there. This is what's going to happen. You didn't do it. This what happened. There's no need to talk anymore. And leave it at that. Now, I've talked about some of the self-esteem breakdowns, which is focusing on the weaknesses, being afraid to set limits, getting sucked into power struggles. Now I want to talk about, before we go on, self-esteem build-ups. To build up the self-esteem is focus on the strengths and say it. Whatever your child is good at, focus on that and let them know. Have the child work for what they want. Let them earn the things that they want. Teach them how to. Of course, we want to give our children more than what we've had. Of course, we want to give them everything that we could possibly do it. But we have to teach them foundation on how to be grateful for what they have, that it's not just a given that somebody had to work for it, but we're just going to teach them how they can earn what they have and they can appreciate it. Setting your limits. Expect behaviors in school, in home, in public, whatever. Set those limits and expect a certain behavior out of your child. My son knows that if he goes somewhere and what you're not going to do and what you're not going to say, if something happens, if you're in school and the teacher has to call, it's one or two things I know that it's going to be. It's either he was talking, because he's not going to be talking back to you. He's not going to cause you any trouble. Now, he may be talking sometime, but then again, his dad is the speaker, so that can happen. He starts to talk. But there's going to be those things to where you already know they know that you expect them to act and do a certain way. And you guide them through to solve problems. You help them solve their problems. Do away with the long lectures. That's it. And one more thing before I go. Is unforgiveness holding you back? Is unforgiveness holding you back? Now, tune in next week for that. We're going to talk about unforgiveness and is it holding you back? So we talked about those self-esteem build-ups. I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Please share and invite someone else to listen. And until next time, I will close each and every episode with the title of my book, Prayer, Patience, Progress. In that order, my name is Steve Robinson. You all have a great week.